everybody, I'm Jennifer Feist, and I want to thank everybody for coming. I will make this as quick as possible. Corey told me about 45 minutes ago that I would be saying a few words. But they prepared us for that in law school, and this is what I'd like to share with you all tonight. My sister Lorna passed away on April 26, 2020. There was no warning. We didn't know it was going to happen. And even now, every day, I wake up and think to myself, what just happened? There has been a terrible mistake. I got the wrong information, and this shouldn't be happening. And when she died, my immediate next thought was, we have to warn the others, because this could have been avoided. I felt like it could have been avoided, and we should have warned the others. And much to my shock and chagrin, when we warned the others, a lot of the things we heard was, oh yeah, we knew about that. People in healthcare knew that healthcare and mental health was a problem. And that's when the fire started, and we said, this has got to change. And so I'm going to shift for a moment. My kids are here. And they we've watched about 100 times a movie, Jumanji. And for those of you who haven't seen Jumanji, the characters get stuck in a video game and they find themselves with magic powers they didn't know they didn't have before. Sometimes it's kickboxing, sometimes it's karate, sometimes it's knowing other languages.
Fight dancing.
They have all kinds of skills, and they don't know what they're going to do with their skills until the exact moment that they need them, and then it kicks in and they win. And so I just want to thank everybody here, because there are so many people here I don't even know. But I have thought throughout this journey how unbelievable it is that Senator Kaine called to tell us his condolences on the loss of my sister, and we were able to say, what should we do about this? And every time we turned around and we needed that superpower, somebody showed up and said, we're here to help you. And this room is full of people, Kelly like that, and Laurel Sakai, and my husband, who worked in healthcare for 20 years and knows everything there is to know about how healthcare works. I don't think that was a coincidence. I don't think any of this was a coincidence. So I just wanted to thank all of you. Thank my mom, Rosemary, who's here with us tonight. I will tell you all, I am not happy that I know about how difficult mental health is in healthcare, but I know my sister did, and I know she is so proud of all of us for this incredible butterfly effect that we have created to change the world. So thank you so much.
You're here. Oh, thank you. My kids just saw me get a piece of paper out and went, oh God, he's got a speech. Only because there are thank you. He always takes my booze. It's so weird. It's that kind of a relationship we have now. It's great. So my name is Corey Feist. I'm the president and co-founder of the Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation. This is our first step and repeat. That's actually a term, a step and repeat, for those who are not in the event planning business, like we weren't till about 10 minutes ago. As Jennifer said, after Lorna died, so many people in this room and across the country stepped in to help us, including this gentleman and so many of you. We had no idea what we were doing or what we were going to work on, but all of you stepped in to help in the most human possible way. And as I look at your faces and I look at all the smiles, and you all have seen me cry like 1,000 times on national television, so I won't. I'll try not to. It's just remarkable how much this whole thing has really reinforced my hope and optimism that when we actually work together on something, we can actually get it done. Because you all stepped up on zero budget to really make this happen. I know a lot of the lobbyists in the room are like, really? They did it on no budget? We did it on no budget. And what you really need to know is the best lobbyist in the room is my 18-year-old son, William Feist, who sat in one meeting, and on our drive home to Charlottesville, the bill was passed unanimously in the Senate, and he didn't even have to say a thing in the meeting. And so he said, Dad, it's just like golf. You just got to put the ball in the hole, man. You just got to put the ball in the hole. So thanks for that inspiration, William. But I do have to I don't get to do that a lot. So I know there's many of you I want to thank personally. I am going to just name a few of you and offend the rest by not, of course, naming you. First and foremost, my incredible family. And the real matriarch of our family is not actually Charlotte, who's 14, and it's not Jennifer, who's slightly more than 14. But Rosemary came, this is her first public appearance. I know Jennifer mentioned she's Lorna's mom. She has been our rock through all of this. So I just want to acknowledge Rosemary. She decided to come a few hours before we left. So she's very spontaneous, Rosemary. But she said, I want to thank this guy and I want to thank all of you. And we've been doing a lot of virtual thanks, so make sure to give Grandma a hug and a snuggle because she really appreciates it. So, and we're so grateful. Thank you.
My sincere thanks to all of you. It means so much to us. And out of our tragedy has come so much good and blessing.
Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you. See, she's like the rock of the whole thing. If anyone needs a great hug, by the way, she's an amazing hugger. We thought we might be in the State of the Union last night, so she came over to our house, but it's a 9 o'clock start, which is about 2 hours after all of our bedtime. She was out before Biden even walked in the room. We were like, I think we might talk. No, never mind. Let her go to sleep. It was actually great. So second, I just want to also note, there have been a bunch of people in this room who have volunteered their time to talk to members of Congress, to educate members of Congress to move this forward. The Johnson & Johnson team has been just absolutely remarkable through this whole thing. Kelly Waters needs a raise. Where's her boss? Jane's in here somewhere. I've already drafted the remarks in your annual review. Kelly, you're amazing. And Jane, we'll talk later about that. The Capitol, I think Denise was, maybe is she here from Capitol Council? She was one of the very first who got us on the phone and said, you got to do something. The Locust team, the JPA team, you all have done an amazing job on our comms. And Ryan in the back, he's taller than I thought. I had not met him before. Ryan from ACEP. The American College of Emergency Physicians was actually the one association that Lorna was super passionate about. Not that she didn't love everyone, but she would always talk about her trips to ACEP. And so they stepped up early and really helped out. So that was amazing. So Team McBride, thank you. I wouldn't let him leave till I could publicly thank him. And there were over 70 organizations that stepped in, and Ryan helped lead that charge early and often, and they recognize that this has to be a bipartisan issue, which it does, which is, I think, the key to the success. So then finally, as I literally hand the mic over to this guy next to me, you inspire us with your leadership and really how you stepped up for all healthcare workers. You didn't have to. You reached out to us and said, how can I help? I don't think you really knew I was a healthcare lawyer at the time and you were going to get a speech longer than this in an email. There were a lot of bullet points. But you didn't have to do that. You really didn't. But you absolutely inspire us with your leadership. And for every healthcare worker out there, they need to know that you are their champion. And you did it in, again, the most collaborative way to get it done. So you know, there are not enough thanks in the world, so thank you so much. So I want to do one thing. We did not get to do a celebration of Lorna's life because, like many, during COVID, we didn't do that. So I would like to raise a glass to Lorna's law. If you'll just join me in this virtual, this class. It will be signed into law any minute now, Team Kaine and Team everyone, but thank you all so much, and thank you so much from the bottom of our heart, Senator Kaine. You've been amazing.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you. Well, what a wonderful gathering of friends. Some of you I know, but many of you I'm meeting, and this cause is the reason I'm meeting you. It's a cause that has, like a magnet, just attracted all kinds of people and all kinds of organizations to do something that's really, really important. And I'm so inspired by Corey and Jennifer, and so glad to meet Rosemary today. I read about Lorna in those early weeks of COVID as we were all confused and trying to figure things out, and something about her story really grabbed me, and certainly that she had family connections in Virginia was part of it, but that wasn't the whole of it. There's just something about that story of healers trying to do their very best in an uncharted time and feeling the stress and strain of it, And having some physicians in my own family, I know the stress and strain like pre-COVID, it made me reach out to these guys and just say, is there something that we can do to be helpful? I have 2 staffers here, and I want to mention a third. So Samantha Kohler is the staffer who works with me on all health-related issues, who's seen this one over the goal line and done a wonderful job. Katie Stuntz is my communications director, and so all the work that we've done together to communicate, Katie has been responsible for helping put this together. And then we have a third staff member who's not here, Katie Wright, who was the one that worked with us at the very beginning to think about what Lorna's loss should be. Katie had probably the hardest pandemic of any of my staffers because her husband had just taken a job in Switzerland right before COVID, and she thought, I'll be able to go over there every other month for a weekend and visit, and then for 2 years they didn't see each other. Katie recently relocated to Switzerland to be with her husband, but is so passionate about this mission that she's on the board of the foundation and continuing to follow and help. So when we heard the story and we reached out to Corey and Jennifer and we started to talk about, what can we do? There's the things you can do that are kind of in the legislative space, but this is much, much bigger than that. Much, much bigger than that. This is about a change in culture with healthcare providers. It's about a change in culture in the education of healthcare professionals, licensing bodies. I've connected Corey and Jennifer to the National Governors Association because states have regulatory requirements that can make things challenging. Because of knowing them, it inspired me to do a lot of conversations with physicians and other nurses and professionals around Virginia and hear their stories of COVID. I remember the day that we introduced the bill, I had written up the remarks, which I usually don't do. I usually just kind of extemp it, but I really wanted to get this right. And so I was writing up a tribute both to Laura, but also describing what the bill would be. And I had a little inspiration just as I was about to print the copy of this out to go to the floor. I had Lorna's resume and articles about her and all of her professional qualifications. And the one thing that I didn't see is a list of publications. And I thought, from everything I've read about this woman, I bet she published articles. And so I just did a LexisNexis search on her, and literally the last article that she published just a couple of months before her death was an article she wrote with colleagues in her emergency room about how to deal with strategies for effectively dealing with burnout among emergency room physicians. And I sort of got a chill. I think this was published in like December of 2019. It was published maybe 3 months before COVID really hit. So this is something, as you say, you wanted to warn others, but others were aware of this, and as you started to warn others, they said, this is part of the life we lead, and it doesn't have to be this way, but we need change. And so what I so admire about Corey and Jennifer is they've asked me to work on this piece of it, which is this federal legislation, but they're going much broader to look at culture change and better state law policies and best practices among physician groups and in providers and in med and nursing schools so that people can figure out how to be a healer and be a healer for a long time, but while also taking the steps necessary to, you're running a marathon, to just keep yourself in the kind of shape where your healing can go on and you can feel comfortable letting others know when you need help. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just am so committed to this. The last thing I'll say is this. COVID will be in the rearview mirror one day, but there's 2 things that won't be. The mental health impact of the last 2 years. We're going to be at 1 million deaths in this country probably by the end of the month. I think we're at about 950,000 deaths to COVID. And there are deaths not to COVID that are because of COVID. Lorna Breen is a COVID death. There's a lot of deaths that don't get categorized as COVID deaths that are COVID deaths. And you take that million, which will pass, and then those who've been sick, and those who've lost jobs, and those who've lost businesses, and those who haven't been able to have a memorial service, or there was a memorial service, but I couldn't go because I couldn't travel, and I had a new grandchild, but I couldn't go visit the new grandchild, or I missed my senior year and I couldn't play football, or I couldn't get my graduation, I couldn't go to the homecoming. You just stack up all of that, death and illness, and then some of the more small things that aren't that small that people have lost over the last 2 years. The mental health consequence of this period in our life is going to go on for a very long time. For a very long time. And I think it's particularly acute in some of our healers, but it's acute for our society. And we're going to have to figure out ways to meet that need. And so this bill is a really important first step, but we're going to have to, broaden the aperture in terms of mental health in our country post-COVID. The second thing that's going on once COVID is over, I just introduced a bill today. It's sort of my latest cause, which is a yeah, right.
William's available.
William, come here. I'm going to hire you. If you can guarantee me a unanimous vote, I can guarantee.
That's pretty good.
The second piece that's going to go on long after COVID is long COVID. The fact that 15 to 28% of people who've had COVID have continuing symptoms. And I introduced a bill today because I had COVID and I have long COVID symptoms, which is nerve endings that tingle like they've had 5 cups of coffee 24/7 all over my body. Not painful, doesn't keep me from working, doesn't keep me from exercising, but it does at least make me understand when somebody comes up to me and says, I had COVID, I could run a marathon before, I can't walk around the block now. I had COVID and I was, just super sharp on the draw, and now there's this brain fog or confusion. I did say to my wife, I said, I got this nerve tingling thing. Thank goodness I don't have brain fog. And she said, how would anyone know the difference? But you think about, neurological or respiratory, or this weirdly racing heart rates, or fatigue, muscle pain. There's just this whole cluster of symptoms, some of which seem kind of that they don't really connect. And yet that's going to be a long-term issue. You're going to see it at Inova. Every hospital is going to see this, and we don't know yet much about it. We're going to have to figure it out. And then that also combines with the mental health piece, because if you don't know if it's going away or not, then there's a whole set of anxieties about that. So look, we got a lot of work to do. But it's important to stop when you make something happen and celebrate the good people who've made it happen. And I want to thank my colleagues, as you mentioned, Corey, very bipartisan. The original co-sponsors of this bill, it was Tim Kaine and Bill Cassidy, Republican physician from Louisiana. It was Jack Reed, my Armed Services Committee chair, and Todd Young, Republican of Indiana. 4 of us in the Senate, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. The companion bill was introduced in the House. By the end, we had so many co-sponsors, and it was such a strange bill. Now, many of you, if you're not like DC experts, you won't appreciate how strange this is, but those of you who are, do. We got the bill funded a year before we got the bill passed. I mean, usually you get the bill passed and then you're trying to get funding. 5 years later, you still haven't gotten funding. But we actually got funding for the bill in the American Rescue Plan, and before we got the Lorna Breen bill passed. And the good news is we have good ties with HHS, and so we went to Secretary Becerra and said, hey, look, we're going to get the bill passed, but you've got the money. Let's work on it right now. And the good news is a lot of these dollars are going out the door. In Virginia, UVA and VCU and George Mason have received multi-year grants to begin both training professionals, coming up with best practices, spreading the word, and 3 institutions in Virginia, but hundreds around the United States will benefit. But the real beneficiaries are these healers. And if they're going to benefit, then we're all going to benefit, because we all need great medical professionals in our lives to take care of us when things don't go right. And if we can keep our health care professionals healthy, then everybody in society wins. That's what this bill is, a step on the way, more work to do. Thank you to Corey and Jennifer and Lorna's family. It's been a real honor to be part of this, and let's do more good work together.
That's right. I'm in.